Welcome, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is John Henry, and I'm the playwright and the co-founder of the Committee for the Republic and the founder of the Stonehill Theatrical Foundation. Now, raise your hand if you know how many presidential wars that we're fighting now. Okay. 9. Yeah, let's start with W. W's 3. Al-Qaeda, Afghanistan, and Iraq. And then Obama added 6. Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, Libya, Syria, and ISIS. Contrary to his America First, I said these are all the knowns. They're expanding fast, and contrary to Trump's America First foreign policy campaign promises, he's actively expanding all of these 9 unconstitutional wars. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. The play tonight is a dramatization of the debate that has been banned in Congress. And my play, after the play, we will have a chance, if you want to stay, to have a discussion. Citizen actors and citizen directors are nothing. Can't go anywhere without a great director. And we're very lucky to have Rick Davis here. Rick, when Rick is not exercising his citizen identity with us, he heads the performing arts at George Mason. So Rick is incidentally, Rick is the Mount Rushmore of citizen directors. So Rick, it's all yours.
Thank you, John, and thank you all for being here. Incredible venue. Thank you for, many of you probably thought you were going somewhere else to see this play, and now we're all here, and so I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank this wonderful cast for their flexibility, not only with the date, but with a new venue, new staging. A few new lines have been added and cut, and I want to just indulge your attention for one moment on the nature of this presentation. We are calling this an 18th century radio play. Because, as you see, we have microphones, but we have a cast in costume. They will be embodying their characters, but they'll be embodying their characters without the liberty of a full staging of the play. So you might think of it as a staged reading, you might think of it as a radio play, and what you'll see is that John Henry has created a framing device for his investigation of this war power question, using a very shrewd idea, which is that the founders have gathered, some of them, have gathered at Benjamin Franklin's house in Philadelphia, and they're sort of waiting for things to get going. And George Washington has cleverly constructed 3 plays about English history to be instructive of the founders as to why we should not entrust war power to the executive. So taking some bloody history from one of our ancestor nations and presenting it by the founders to the founders of the founders, if you will, so that they can learn from history's example and not having it repeat itself. So there's a sort of an interesting meta-theatricality in this piece where we have a play, and then there are plays within the play, and the plays within the play are really about the play. Now, but what that also means is that the history plays, if you're not lost yet in my explanation, I maintain that you get lost, so when you're lost, that'll be good. The history plays are performed more or less on script, because they are, after all, brand new plays that George Washington had written for him by whoever the leading playwright of Philadelphia in the 18th century was. I don't actually know who that was. Anyway, so they'll be some of the actors will be using scripts some of the time, not other of the time, and that is permissible within our context of an 18th century radio play in which there are 3 new plays being premiered for the first time. Okay, everybody got that? One more thing, a little theater history note. One of the things that I just love about working on these projects with this company is that as someone who has studied theater history for my whole life, this is the closest I can come to what I imagine ancient Athens must have been like in the presentation of the great Greek dramas that gave birth to Western drama. Because those were not performed by professional actors, they were not directed by professional directors, they were not written by professional playwrights. They were written by generals, and they were written by statesmen, and they were performed by citizens in an attempt through civic ritual to ennoble the Athenian project and to gather other citizens in large and small theaters, mainly large ones, to consider questions of great moment to Athens. And so we are, in a sense, recreating that feeling by presenting here in the National Press Club a play about an urgently contemporary American theme using the great power of our citizens to do so. So thank you for being part of this project. And one more little operational note. Another 18th century tradition is having a prompter. So I'm going to be sitting over there prompting, ignore me. If I prompt a line, just pretend it was part of the play. Okay, so that's all I got to say. I look forward to the play, and I look forward to your comments afterwards. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Republic for which we stand.
This is so exciting, Benjamin, to be here for this momentous event.
Oui, madame. It is one small step for the United States and one giant step for mankind. The Constitutional Convention delegates are on the way.
Mr. and Mrs. Madison have arrived.
My dearest darling, how I've missed the pleasure of your company.
James is such a strategist. He figures it'll take another week to polish his blueprint for our new republic.
You remember in your Poor Richard Almanac, you said, God give everything to industry.
That little gem tripled my circulation.
You know, so many people, they talk the talk, but they do not walk the walk. You, my friend Benjamin, were the king of our Paris salon. You even persuaded the French to bankroll the American Revolution.
Madame, Ben tells me he learned the art of diplomacy in your seductive salon.
You will always be the center of my salons. Look, I have the perfect peacock feather for your turban. Your charm's irresistible. Well, James, we succeeded in rejecting the monarchy and the British tyranny of the British Empire, but how are we going to fall into the same empire trap?
We make a break in history.
But how do you want history fight back?
I was created and put on earth to make history lose.
But all prior efforts have been defeated.
They lack the general theory of man that explains all human behavior.
You know, I walk all over Paris with that beautiful, tall, red-haired Thomas Jefferson. I had to fight off all the femme fatale around him just to get him to concentrate on getting you your books.
I still get mad when I think about all the dinner parties we missed. Nothing puts me to sleep faster than staying at home and listening to James expound on every political system since Adam and Eve.
Your Constitution will be celebrated.
You know your constitution, it will be celebrated all over Europe as the most beautiful piece ever struck off the brain for the purpose of man.
Our Constitution will inspire countries for centuries.
But we can't change people, so how do we make a break with history?
By creating a liberty-centered republic that denies any person or institution unchecked power.
Our liberty is doomed if we depend on Virgin Mary's sitting in the Oval Office.
You know, this constitution, it will be the envy of every king and monarch in Europe.
General and Mrs. Washington have arrived.
Our Constitution will be our standing army. George and Martha, welcome.
Well, the first in war, the first in peace, and the first in the hearts of his countrymen. You are the American Trinity.
George's feet are firmly planted on the ground. He loves his scientific farming. It took all of James's persuasiveness to get him to clean up and come to Philadelphia.
I fought to make King George III our last king.
You were commander-in-chief of the Continental Army for 8 years. An American crown was yours for the taking.
Can you believe Alexander Hamilton begging you to become king?
His hunger for monarchy alarms me. I'd hire him to ghostwrite my memoirs, but he lacks the judgment to craft the Constitution.
If he is not careful, he will be the same fate as Macbeth.
I rejoiced in King George's rebuke. I have no desire to be a bejeweled queen like that Marie Antoinette.
You are perhaps clairvoyant, madame, because Marie Antoinette, she has perhaps a guillotine in her future. She is on the cutting edge of history.
In a republic, everyone is a king or queen, but no one wears a crown.
Alexander Hamilton.
Speaking of the devil, is that the King's Order of the Garter you're wearing?
It is. But in America, it's really only good for holding up one's socks.
Well, in London, the Order of the Garter sits above even the upper crust.
Well, I've been featured in the London Times more than the Earl Marshal.
You think you're going to be rich becoming a foreign agent? Forget it. I'm writing an emoluments clause in the Constitution just for you.
I've looked into King George's eyes and gotten a sense of his soul. And do business with him.
We let you write the Declaration of Independence. King George III would escape all 27 counts of the indictment.
We must emulate the British monarchy. Otherwise, we'll never achieve our manifest destiny. World greatness.
The only thing that's manifest is your vaulting ambition.
Yes, you know, as I said before about the Macbeth.
Kings aren't enough for you. You've gone over the House of Lords. Can you believe that Alexander wanted senators to serve for life?
Mr. and Mrs. Mason have arrived.
George, Sarah, the Masons are always welcome in my home.
Oh, look who's here, our very own Catiline.
Isn't that the man who conspired with the Roman Republic? Conspired against dictators?
Yes. And now he's going to destroy our republic with monarchy.
You took the words out of my mouth. You know that on July 4th, 1776, King George wrote in his diary, "Nothing of great importance happened today."
Alexander's elected monarchs will be as rotten as the hereditary ones.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
General, you must be president for life.
No one, including me, is saintly or wise enough to be president for life. Triumphalism, narcissism, this is not my cup of tea.
Your ambition, Mr. Hamilton, is to ride Washington's coattails like Augusta rode Caesar's toga.
The president must have limitless power. Energy. 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 Energy is what will make this president great.
Alexander, have you forgotten governments are formed to secure life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness?
Your duty is to make America #1. And I found a better seamstress than Betsy Ross.
No, 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 no. The Liberty Bell symbolizes the American Revolution. The crack in the Liberty Bell symbolizes the defects in men and women. Our Constitution must counteract those defects and arrest presidential power. Otherwise, we'll become an empire that celebrates war rather than a republic that celebrates peace.
Our Liberty Bell, crack and all, will thunder like a hammer on an anvil across all the globe. It will shake the foundations of every monarchy by teaching that resistance to tyranny is obedience to God.
But if you have your way, the crack in the Liberty Bell will become a chasm, and it will be destroyed.
All executives are predisposed to war, yet no nation has ever attempted to remove the war power from the executive.
That's why history is little more than a chronicle of war.
George III was the last to throw in the towel.
Better to fight too many wars than too few.
Are we to have an Athenian democracy then?
If every Athenian citizen was a Socrates, a collection of them all, it would still be unmocked. Majorities oppress minorities at every turn.
James is right. Only a republic can tame the madding crowd.
I forbid anyone to use the term democracy at the convention. There is no greater tyranny than the tyranny of mob.
We French are proving this with our so-called bloody democratic revolution. We are going to be headed to a disaster.
Or beheaded, as the case may be. James, what restrictions do you have on mobocracy?
Bicameral legislature, separate rules for electing House President, Senate, supermajorities for treaties, overriding presidential vetoes and constitutional amendments, then confirmation of president appointees, and independent Supreme Court empowered to invalidate majority votes.
Now I understand why there are such simple answers to very complex questions, and they're all wrong.
There you go again, James. How many times have I scolded you not to speak didactic and allegro? I love your wisdom, but I love my dinner parties more. And we'll never get invited if you keep that up.
At Valley Forge, I enjoyed history plays, so I have commissioned 3 short plays that, pending the achievement of a quorum here in Philadelphia, we may present for your entertainment and education.
There are the 3 greatest warrior kings in England in medieval times: William the Conqueror, Edward III, and Henry V.
Our English ancestors vivified precisely what we must avoid.
They are performed by non-equity citizen actors who make up in enthusiasm what they may lack in talent and experience. They will also be referring to their scripts, which may be found on your chairs.
I have always wanted to be William the Conqueror ever since I was a child. This is my chance to get on Broadway!
We have
We are the victims of war.
War turned us into orphans. War turned us into widows.
War was to bury our sons before our sons would bury us.
With the unknown collateral damage of war.
William the Conqueror is our first king.
Matilda is his wife.
In 1066, they launched the Norman conquest of England. King William and Queen Matilda create the English warfare state. It will expand over the centuries into the world's largest empire.
We have a unique actress, Joan of Arc. Pay attention to what she says.
Do you remember the play Lysistrata?
Greek women understood the power of withholding their lovely favors.
They persuade their husband to end up the Peloponnesian War just to gratify their lust.
A happy ending.
No. You've forgotten how short-lived this peace was. The men, they resumed their war, and the women submitted in exchange for a crumb of equality. La guerre, c'est toujours la guerre.
Ever since men stood erect, they've been fueled by their hormones.
Killer, rapists, they wear crown and they use their scepter indiscriminately. Quelle surprise. You startled me?
You look just like Michelangelo's Virgin Mary.
You must have been a student of art history. I am the Virgin Mary.
Sacre bleu. I am honored, my mother.
Don't be afraid. I'm not going to do any God talk. Just listen to me. You must condemn war. It's wrong for the strong to do what they can and the weak to suffer what they must.
Pardonnez-moi, ma mère, but la guerre, this is inescapable. It is like the air we breathe.
That doesn't make it right. Please, please follow the better angels of your nature.
What angels? I have been looking for angels all my life, and so far I have not found one single one. A sword. This yields more than a plow, give adrenaline high to the men, and in the quickest way to power and wealth and fame.
What do you want?
No more amour. I had enough of the sex.
Oui.
I'm already rich, I'm already famous, but my love of power, this is never satiated, never.
So power's the ultimate aphrodisiac. Isn't it grand enough to be the Duchess of Normandy?
Normandy feels small. I want so much more. I am woman, hear me roar.
I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore, and I know too much to go back and pretend.
Drown innocent blood.
I did not set this admission price.
When men go low, you must go high.
You know, we women, we are not saints. We are human, just like the man. Don't be girl.
Ah, there you are. I've been looking all over the castle for you.
You know, young, since I was a child, I have seen myself as a gold queen in every mirror. It is now time to upgrade from the Duke and the Duchess.
What's your plan?
We conquer England.
You're joking.
Oh, you think so? I won't have you under my sheets if you don't obey me.
Well, that is no joke.
What is the point, William, mon cher? If you have all this strong military and you never brag, you brag about it, but you never use it.
Nobody is going to mess with me when they see my big stick.
To war is better than to draw.
And your battle hymn is, I came, I saw, he died. You're as callous as me.
If 500,000 widow and orphan have to pay the price, so be it, ça va, c'est la guerre.
Ah, and I will double that price.
You know, I quiver with excitement when I watch you crush your uncles to become this Duke of Normandy, les oncles pavés.
Would you have married me if I hadn't killed so many?
Not on your life. Jamais.
War. Revenge is my master.
You should be nothing less than a king. You know, your stick is too big to remain a little duke.
And you're too big a woman to be anything less than a queen. You're my nasty woman.
And you're my nasty man. My bad hombre.
We need a pretext for war.
Humanitarian intervention? That works every time.
We'll say we had to destroy the village in order to save it.
But our huge horses will trample those Anglo-Saxon foot soldiers on Gaul is unpavé.
We'll dot the English countryside. We will dot the countryside with castles, and we'll make the English speak French.
Bien sûr, mon chéri. I will fund a fleet to cross the channel.
But our barons only owe us a spare 40 days of military service.
They will complain about serving and being served over there in England, the weather, the food, les muffins anglais.
Quel fromage!
Quel dommage.
Caesar had the answer. Land. Give them half the conquered land.
Yes, the promised land. Demi pour nous, demi pour eux, c'est bien.
Remember, the Romans left England, but the Normans will never leave the promised land.
William the Conqueror defeated the Anglo-Saxons.
As planned, Matilda and William traded up from Duke and Duchess of Normandy to King and Queen of England in one of history's greatest land grabs.
Now, 20,000 Normans oppressed 2 million Anglo-Saxons.
I always wanted to be part of the 1%.
We preserve the Anglo-Saxon institution, they were at least 2 centuries ahead of France.
Even though we exterminated the Anglo-Saxons like flies.
While we distribute the land and the castles throughout the island to our Norman barons.
We're political engineers.
You know, 90% of England's wealth is land. I know, I invented the Doomsday Book. It identifies all the landowners in the land.
And it spells doom for taxpayers.
Bien sûr, you can't fight wars with empty coffers.
Don't you worry that taxation without representation might provoke a revolution?
We have a free ride for 7 centuries.
You've sacrificed your soul to gain England.
It is the best bargain I ever made. My soul, this is only abstract. My power is concrete.
We're going to be history's most successful warfare state. A new island race. We'll be a hybrid of Norman warrior genes and Anglo-Saxon institutional genes.
And for fashion, Levi-Strauss jeans.
A perfect recipe for greatness. We'll succeed where Rome has failed. We will win and win and win and win and win until we're #1. You might have a reason to use this shirt.
Whoa. Huh. Good God. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again. Whoa. Huh. Good God. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. That Matilda's a piece of work. She craved power as much as William.
I fought the American Revolution to sweep away centuries of servitude.
Rights are donations from kings.
We're born with unalienable rights.
We don't do conquest like William and Matilda.
We unsheathe the sword of liberty only in self-defense.
Our Constitution will rise or fall on resisting the temptations of war.
Our Constitution must be designed for peace.
We gave up heart, home, and lives for 8 long years to defeat empire.
Unless we create institutions that pit ambition against ambition, our liberty will be crucified on a cross of imperial gold.
Our sovereignty must be entrusted to only the president. Only he can keep us safe.
In a republic, citizens are sovereign.
Congressional governments lead from the rear. The president must be the world leader, just like William the Conqueror.
World leadership, except by example, is repugnant to every bone in my body.
That's using a lot of bones to say a lot of stuff. I don't even know what word leadership means.
Well, I think it is like the French when we talk about obscenity. We know it when we see it.
Government by executive order is more efficient. Well, it is.
If you keep talking like that, we'll evict you from the Constitutional Convention.
For forms of government, let fools contest. For whatever is best administered is best.
You have it backward. Liberty is more important than making the coaches run on time.
Caesar was efficient. Our glory is liberty. Let's watch another history play for entertainment and instruction.
Our second play uncurtains 2 centuries after William the Conqueror and Matilda.
Queen Isabella, the she-wolf of France, marries the weak English king, Edward II. George, we need someone to play Edward II. Will you do it?
Gladly.
Their son, Edward III, becomes a disciple of William the Conqueror and Matilda. They return as ghosts to excite and guide his ambition, to conquer France and to become one of the greatest warrior kings in medieval history.
We're the victims of war. War turned us into orphans. War turned us into widows.
War caused us to bury our sons before our sons would bury us.
We're the unknown collateral damage of war.
Listen to me, young Edward. Above all, learn to love the written word.
And don't forget, King John read books.
And look where that got him.
You know, King John, he lost our lands in France. He lost Normandy. There went our resources.
And he lost Brittany. And there goes our retirement homes.
Anjou, there went the tax shelter for our crony barons.
And Aquitaine. Oh, well, there goes our best wines.
All the book learning in the world would not have won over the Bourbons. Foi, comme vichyssoise.
I haven't read a book in 40 years. Reflections inhibit war. Athens became great by killing Socrates.
What did I just hear?
You heard me right. Killing Socrates made Athens great.
You had such a wonderful aptitude for rewarding killer and plunderer. Ruthlessness made you England's strongest king.
Well, if you're a great warrior, the barons will bankroll you.
Well, it's all about return on investment.
ROI is the battle cry of empire.
What is this? ROI, ROE, say the was the king.
Edward, my dearest son, you must sit on the throne of France. It's your destiny. I'll settle for nothing less.
Edward must recover all the land that weak King John he lost. Our racehorses, Normandy, our retirement home, Brittany, our tax shelter, Anjou, and our wine, Aquitaine.
But that's just the first step on the road to Paris.
You were born to conquer, yes?
Yes.
Well, you just do to France whatever William here did to England.
You mean regime change?
No, that's small change. We're talking about much more than regime change. We're talking about seizing the whole damn country. You've got to earn this shirt.
You know, you don't even stop there. You conquer the whole damn world.
racehorses, retirement homes, tax shelters, and why?
We tell the whole world what to think and what to do.
And we'll call it globalization.
I'd be wearing a French crown if I were a man. My anger boils over. The blood of King Charlemagne flows in your veins through me.
Why did the French barons pass you over for a mere count?
The French don't do stand-alone queens.
Don't worry, Mom. I'm the only one who can fix this.
Edward, I implore you, don't follow their advice. The graves of the innocent are the foundation of the French throne.
And the English throne. And all thrones. Why should I be held to a higher standard than other kings? I'll climb to the top, using the skulls of my enemies as rungs on a ladder.
Listen to me. Conquest defeats itself. Justice lives for the ages.
But conquest is what strong kings do.
Think for yourself. Peace is the hallmark of the strong.
Nothing's worse than a weak king. Dad's a loser.
Why do you keep trying? Nobody is listening to you.
I wish you would stop inciting our son to become King of England. Ruling England's unruly barons is hard enough.
Act like a king. Respect your queen.
I know my love for Piers Gaveston is wrong, but I'm just a king who can't say no. I'm in a terrible fix. I always say, come on, let's go, when I just ought to say nix.
You're forgetting our marriage is a business deal between two royal families. You went overboard pilfering estates for Gaveston, but not for me.
You're jealous.
Gaveston is insulting every baron.
I'll suggest he consider stopping.
I have bad tidings for my king.
What happened?
Please, don't shoot the messenger. Gaveston is dead. The barons have killed him, and they have sent his head.
I have all in their heads. Gaveston was the love of my life.
Get a hold of yourself. If you don't watch out, you're next.
Is that it? What happens next?
After the second consorts with another baron and history repeats itself, Isabella is estranged and returns to Paris, where she falls in love with Roger Mortimer, an exiled British noble. Let's peek in on one of history's greatest love affairs.
I'm not entirely comfortable with playing Mortimer, but no sacrifice is too great for my
What's that scar on your lip, Mortimer?
Your husband's battlefield signature.
My heart bled when Edward confiscated your estates for his new lover, Hugh Despenser.
If I hadn't escaped from the Tower of London, Edward would have executed me.
My heart soared when my brother, the King of France, gave you sanctuary.
That's the first and only time he waived his executive order against immigrants and refugees.
Sex with Edward was purely transactional. My youngest daughter was conceived as he caressed Despenser and told me to love him.
Have you sought the arms of another?
Never, my dearest Mortimer, even though my heart is oh so desolate and lonely.
For so long I dared not tell you, you're the woman of my dream.
And you, the man in mine.
When I reached France, I made 2 vows. To wear black until I returned to England, and never never to touch a woman until I saw you again.
And have you kept your vows?
Doubtful. Every woman knows that a man loves her.
And I know you love me. But we've plighted our troth to others.
Those were the wishes of our families, not the wishes of our hearts.
Can I ask everything of you?
My queen, everything and more. My love's what you desire it to be. Could lie naked beside you and never touch you if you forbade it.
Let's take a blood vow with our hearts. I give you my heart, dearest Edward, and I take yours.
Dearest, I take your heart and keep it in place of my own.
In Paris, Isabella and Mortimer planned the violent overthrow of the King of England and the coronation of her son as King Edward III.
I need an additional loan.
I'm sorry, you're absolutely maxed out.
My credit's gold.
I've checked the credit bureau. Your score does not qualify you to buy a Chevy Venetian gondola on a 20-year installment plan.
I repay you when I get my hands on the English treasury.
And what is your business plan?
I'll overthrow Edward and rule England in my son's name.
And where is your army?
I've married my son off for 2,000 mercenaries. The King of France supports me. Mortimer's my commander-in-chief.
Defeating Edward will be as effortless as a victory lap.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Well, I'll think about it.
Think all you want, but if I don't get the money right away, I'll break up all the banks, and you'll never be too big to fail again.
In that case, we have a deal.
Follow our 1066 playbook.
And you'll never be a loser.
Send your ships away after landing. No retreat.
Give me victory or give me death.
Things unfolded as planned. Queen Isabella and Mortimer did regime change on her husband, Edward II.
Uneasy is the head that wears the crown.
My lord, we are here to present a gift from Mortimer and Isabella.
I wanted you to be able to kiss your lover once before you depart this earth. Sorrow's coming back. For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the death of kings. How some were deposed, some slain in war, some haunted by the ghosts they deposed, some poisoned by their wives, some sleeping killed, all murdered. For within the hollow crown that rounds the mortal temples of a king keeps death his court. And there the anti sits, scoffing his state and grinning at his pomp, allowing him a breath, a little scene, to monarchize, be feared, and killed with looks, infusing him with self and vain conceit. as if this flesh which walls about our life were brass impregnable. And Hubert Bloodlust comes at the last, and with a little pin bores through his castle wall, and farewell, king.
The deed is done, Your Majesty. Edward II is dead.
Best trophy there is, perfect for my wax museum.
England's ours.
How much money would you like?
Enough to make King Midas envious.
That'll put you ahead of the Duke of Lancaster on Forbes' World's Billionaire List. But let's go slowly, lest the barons revolt.
But dear Mortimer, when are the barons not revolting? There are only two important things in life. One is money, and I've forgotten what the second is.
Living in the material world, and you are a material girl. You know that we are living in the material world, and you are a material girl. Living in a material world, and you are a material girl. You know that we are living in a material world, and you are a material girl.
Young Edward III does regime change by killing Mortimer.
Before Parliament, I charge you with the murder of my father.
I gave you your crown.
Father abdicated to me, not to you.
His death saved your crown.
Furthermore, I charge you with a shameful peace treaty with Scotland.
The Scots backed our invasion of England.
But I am the hammer of the Scots.
Yes, and to you we are your nails.
Members of Parliament, declare him guilty.
Guilty! Guilty! Guilty!
Off with his head. Off with his head! Mortimer is now dead.
The ghosts of William the Conqueror and Matilda coach Edward on diplomacy with Parliament.
Parliament, you know, was created to bankroll war.
No one can escape taxes.
War is the best way to excite the loyalty of your subjects.
The French don't hang together.
So we will hang them separately. 1, 2, 3.
You are the hammer of the French.
By fighting the Welsh and the Scots, we created battle formations of longbow archers that can stop a cavalry charge in full gallop at 200 meters.
And longbows are as important to our empire as horses were to Genghis Khan.
I'll give longbow craftsmen tax-free credits and cost-plus contracts. But assuming they don't outsource, of course. That'll prime a pump of the military-industrial complex. And I'll make archery a part of our common core curriculum.
And England is a government of men, not of laws. And that's why we have no written constitution.
So the Constitution is nothing but a brooding omnipresence in the sky.
And it is the divine right of monarchs to take their countries to war.
Obviously, you can't be trusted to keep the peace. Can't our chorus persuade you?
We're the victims of war. War turned us into orphans. War turned us into widows. War caused us to bury our sons before our sons would bury us. We're the unknown collateral damage of war.
Battlefields' deaths are nothing more than dry statistics.
Parliament is nothing but a talking shop. Chat, chat, chat.
Talking shops don't go abroad in search of monsters to destroy.
Well, thank God Parliament doesn't have a war power.
If that ever happens, we might as well be Finland.
Without a Caesar, the sun will surely set on the English Empire.
And that is why Rome chose dictators over its own cautious Roman Senate.
King Edward fancied himself a ladies' man.
Ah, my dear Countess, I am so glad to see you.
Why did you send my husband to France?
Diplomacy.
Why do I not believe you?
Well, because it's not the truth. In my court, to tell the truth, a gaffe. And that's the truth. I feel the coarsest love.
You are acting like King David. Is my husband to be your Uriah the Hittite?
Oh, don't worry, I won't kill your husband. He's an old friend of mine. The Count can count on that.
Can I count on you not treating me like Bathsheba?
Ah, that's one count too many.
Have you no honor?
Well, this is not a matter of honor. This is a matter of national security. I feel your love would give me strength in battle.
Adultery and chivalry don't sleep together. To be king of my country cannot make you lord of my bed.
Ah, but a king, the ace of trumps, can do no wrong!
Feeling better now that you're through. Feeling better because I'm over you. I learned my lesson, it left a scar. Now I see who you really are. You're no good, you're no good, you're no good. Baby, you're no good. I'm gonna say it again. You're no good, you're no good, you're no good. Baby, you're no good. Oh, 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 you're no good, you're no good, you're no good. Baby, you're no good.
Edward attacked France to regain the French lands King John had lost. He crushed the enemy at the famous Battle of Crécy.
Edward was beloved by the English barons because he was a winner.
But his victories were illusory. As soon as the dead were buried, the French resistance continued.
Ah, my dear cousin John. Well, I am so pleased to have the French king as my guest.
Oh, cher cousin, me. I've enjoyed the hospitality of Windsor Palace since my most unchivalrous capture. Mais quand même, the room rates are higher than my chambre de roi Louvre. It's extortion.
Well, you are free to leave anytime you're paid up.
Ransom between royal cousins should not be an independent profit sans trop.
Well, dear cousin, we can end this war today.
What's your peace plan, monsieur?
Recognize my right to Normandy, recognize my right to Brittany, recognize my right to Anjou, and recognize that Aquitaine is mine. I will accept nothing less than complete and total surrender. And you can't trump that.
Well, I will think about it. Ça c'est me réfléchir, connard!
Well, take your time, dear cousin. You're not going anywhere.
You killed hundreds of thousands of soldiers and civilians on an industrial scale for nothing.
If I didn't fight the French on French soil, I'd end up fighting the bloody frickin' frogs in England.
That's the soundtrack of every conqueror. You don't fool me.
But I don't care. You don't finance my wars. Parliament does. And I have them in my pocket.
You create your own enemies. Hornets won't sting you if you don't disturb their nest.
But I can't chance even a 1% chance of a rogue hornet.
Even if eliminating that tiny risk means going to the dark side?
Even if it means killing them all. I dwell on the dark side.
Edward III was a carbon copy of William the Conqueror.
They lived for conquest.
Oh, I'm glad I did not have to fight them. The war would have lasted very much longer.
That Queen Isabella was a chip off the old block of Matilda.
We have to entrust the war power to an institution with no inherent incentive to exercise it.
Otherwise, we'll be just like the British, and there goes their exceptionalism.
The king and parliament are one. There's no separation. Ah.
The sword and purse are joined.
That's why the British fight wars at the drop of a hat.
Well, you never know when your credibility is going to be tested. Credibility gaps destroy world leadership.
Even if it means doing stupid stuff?
Better dead than not credible.
That's the reasoning that caused the Roman Republic to embrace military dictators.
In pursuing empire, the dictators destroyed the republic they were supposed to save.
Empire is too important to be left to civilians. Generals, they get the job done.
Perhaps our best and brightest can discover how our Constitution can prevent the scourge of war. Let us watch the last history play and ask Mr. Madison.
As George said, Edward's dazzling victories were short-lived.
They died before they were out of swaddling clothes.
Normandy, Brittany, Anjou, Aquitaine, all went back to France by the time Edward was buried.
Graveyards are full of indispensable people.
History repeats itself, first as tragedy and then as farce.
A half-century lapses, when another indispensable English warrior, King Henry V, repeats the futility of conquering France.
Kings learn nothing and forget nothing.
We need an actor for the role of Joan of Arc. Dolly, can you play 18-year-old Joan?
George, I'd love to. I'd love to be a glamorous actress and young again.
Oh my goodness, that's our Henry V. Badge.
I'm in. I even got Botox for my countless wrinkles.
Well, King Henry, you need to deliver this ultimatum to the King of France. Surrender Normandy.
Surrender Anjou.
Surrender Brittany.
Surrender Aquitaine. Everything that Edward III recaptured.
Isn't this deja vu all over again?
When the king refuses, I've got my war.
Carry my son's big stick. Oh, excuse me, I meant to say scepter.
Awaken the sword from its slumber for conquest.
If you're not king of France, you're not king of England.
Je répète Crécy, adage encore. Encore, éclair.
Our longbows will slaughter the enemy as God did every Egyptian firstborn.
The English people are good, no? C'est très bien.
Exceptional.
Indispensable.
If foreign governments don't submit, we attack them as state sponsors of terrorism or the axis of evil.
God gave me victory at Agincourt, but in return I had to double my tithe from the plunder.
You know now we control Paris. J'adore Paris au printemps. Every moment of the year.
I love Paris in the springtime. I love Paris in the fall. I love Paris in the winter when it drizzles. I love Paris in the summer when it sizzles. I love Paris every moment of the year. I love Paris. Why, oh why do I love Paris? Because my love is here.
Our dreams come true. Our son has unified the royal houses of England and France.
My Queen Catherine.
Who on earth are you?
I'm Joan of Arc.
I never thought I'd see a woman wearing armor.
Some ask why, I ask, why not?
That's an eye-catching sound.
Better to have my enemies swoon and croon and fight.
Did you get it from Lord Bergdorf's?
No! It's from Gallery Lafayette. It's designed by Oscar de Brandt.
You wear armor as a light cloak.
Hey, stop flirting.
It's my philosophy of life. I flirt. Therefore, I am.
Civil war between the Burgundians and the Armagnacs put Paris in your lap. But now, they've signed a peace treaty. God anointed me to unite France and expel you!
Get me a doctor. Doctor, how much time does he have?
Until the tower chimes the hour.
Bring me a priest.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
My odds are better with 3 than 1.
You don't have enough time to confess your sins, so just pick the top 100.
God's foreign policy is so erratic. No one knows what he's going to do next.
Even God doesn't know, but right now, he's on Henry's side.
No, God is on my side.
How do you know?
Because I carry the big stick.
Joe, God has a surplus of big sticks and yours doesn't matter.
It's England's turn for civil war.
My biggest mistake was to believe in God's campaign promises.
England goes down in the War of the Roses.
England should have known life is not a bed of roses.
Your son won't become king of France.
You're worse torture than the rack and screw.
The sins of the father are visited upon the son. He'll inherit the insanity of your French royal family.
Oh dear, it's a perfect storm.
The English will be driven from France. It's our turn to hang together and yours to hang separately.
Listen to me, Joe. The only moral justification for killing is self-defense.
The English stole French territory. I fight a defensive war.
What's your moral authority for drawing France's borders? They change as frequently as the weather.
You're not God's only messenger. I hear his voices.
Do you do horoscopes and necromancy too?
God promised us the lands between the Mediterranean, the Pyrenees, and the Atlantic in fee simple absolute. All he asks is that we eat duck.
Are you certain God had good title?
Trust in God, but keep your powder dry.
Forgo any territorial ambitions beyond France's existing borders.
No, it's our promised land. It's our horses. It's our retirement homes. It's our tax shelters. It's our wine. It's what makes us great again. It's our turn to wear the #1 shirt.
I don't see the future that way.
That's because you don't hear voices like me. I gladly wield God's terrible Swiss sword.
You are on a fool's errand. The King and Queen of England draw the world's borders.
You're kidding yourself. Every border drawn by the sword is as fleeting as a politician's tear.
Oh, ma mère, peace, this is for the starry-eyed. The last two people on this earth will kill each other over a clod of dirt. C'est vrai.
Oh, like the labors of Sisyphus. France was won and lost again and again. Normandy in, Normandy out.
Brittany in, Brittany out.
Anjou in, Anjou out.
Aquitaine in, Aquitaine out.
Edward III and Henry V confused winning battles with winning wars.
Never have so many fought for so long or so little.
I'm on the side of the Virgin Mary.
All the other characters seem exactly alike.
Well, duh. That's the whole point of the last 3 plays. We are all tempted to pursue the worst angels of our nature, and there is only a handful who might resist.
George and Martha's plays reenact the problem that has bedeviled mankind since the beginning of time.
James, it's time for you to tell us your solution.
Oh, wait. I haven't read as many books as your husband or written as many words, but James Madison hasn't endured life's hardships like me.
Your hardships have not made you wise.
They excited your revenge.
Men who carry dueling pistols die at an early age.
You only say that because I'm an immigrant. But I'll have you know that I was properly vetted at the border. We need platonic guardians.
Well, Alexander, whom do you have in mind then?
He narrowed the field to one, himself.
Well, as platonic guardian, I would fight preemptive wars to make us great and keep us safe. And if I'm successful, why, I would expect a monument taller than General Washington's 555-foot obelisk.
But who guards the guardians?
Well, no one. Guardians don't need to be watched, they're trusted.
You'll be cold-shouldered at the convention. In fact, you'll leave early when the delegates turn a deaf ear to your monarchical ideas.
You covet war because it was your ticket to power as aide-de-camp to George.
Well, it's certainly no accident that Alexander eagerly paid William the Conqueror and so admires Kings Henry and Edward.
That's why we can't roll the dice with individuals. For every one Washington, there are 100 Hamiltons, 1,000 Hamiltons, 1,000,000 Hamiltons.
What do you mean by that?
Military glory blinds men. We must entrust the war power to an institution not so blinded to secure peace.
Such wisdom does not emerge from nocturnal trysts. I know from long experience.
After me, James's true loves are Plutarch's Lives and Thucydides' History of the Peloponnesian War. I never lose a wink of sleep thinking that James is philandering.
When I was in Paris, James would have been an even more boring companion than that puritanical John Adams. Why, every night he would awake, worried that someone, somewhere, might be enjoying himself.
If everyone listened to the Virgin Mary, there'd be no reason to fragment power amongst rival institutions, each with distinct and opposing personalities.
That's history's greatest insight ever.
What about Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and even Machiavelli?
They sought virtuous individuals as the remedies for abuse of power. They failed to discern that institutional personalities will trump the personalities of the occupants.
That must be why the more things change, the more they stay the same, even with a cavalcade of differing and new personalities.
What's the personality of the executive branch?
Kinetic, bellicose, ambitious, like a pit bull always sniffing for something to attack.
In other words, Alexander Hamilton.
Great Britain never erected a monument to a peace king.
Or a peace queen?
And neither did France.
What is the personality of the legislative branch?
Highly risk-averse, like a Labrador retriever. Stays at peace unless it's attacked.
War's the riskiest of all human endeavors.
There's no upside for legislators. That's why they won't go to war unless the country's attacked.
Like George, Congress will only unsheath the sword in self-defense.
As the plays show, that's why the British never gave Parliament the war power.
Oh, Madison's theory of man doesn't apply to America. We're exceptional. Well, how else can an immigrant like me rise to the top? Well, come on. Let's get the attention back on me. I'm a shining city on a hill, all by myself.
Alexander, people who believe they are chosen are more dangerous than pit bulls.
There aren't any good guys or bad guys.
There are only nasty men like William and nasty women like Matilda.
And there are bad hombres in Bella Chica.
We will never be great until we crown the president with more power than anyone else in the history of the world.
You should have spent more time reading books. The executive branch destroys all things, and the greatest of these is peace.
Our salvation is with Congress, the Labrador, not the pit bull. Congress must be entrusted with exclusive responsibility for war.
But war is the definition of greatness. Only the president can monopolize honors, emoluments, and patronage.
War is the greatest of oppressions.
Is abandoning peace for war the greatest decision a nation makes?
Yes, listen carefully again to our chorus.
We're the victims of war. War turned us into orphans. War turned us into widows.
War caused us to bury our sons before our sons could bury us.
We're the unknown collateral damage of war.
Oh, come on! You've got to be kidding! I mean, we can't be great without fighting wars. Turning swords into plowshares is not an alternative. We need to man up.
No. You need to man down. Put the pistol away.
I welcome a bullet from you as eagerly as Socrates welcomed hemlock.
Only foolish philosophers like Socrates die for liberty. Liberty is for losers.
Have you forgotten Socrates lives for the ages? His accusers are buried in obscurity.
Our country holds a unique place in world history.
Only if we wish freedom well everywhere, but fight only to defend our own.
Madison, our policy must be force if we're to be an exceptional nation.
You've got history upside down. Did you sleep through the 3 plays? Force is the signature of every empire. Have you forgotten the words you uttered as William the Conqueror? Narcissism blinds you.
How can we have answers for the world if we don't have answers for ourselves?
I see in you what I saw with alarm in William the Conqueror, Edward III, and Henry V.
But they're my heroes. And I was born to be them. And men of action don't duel with words. And the great questions are answered by iron and blood. And power comes from the end of a barrel. And some of the greatest quarrels are only settled on the field of honor.
Alexander, do as Martha says. Put the pistol away. And disarm yourself of these destructive ideas. Otherwise, you will be ridiculed as the poster boy for American royalism and bellicosity. I didn't win the War of Independence to create an empire.
And we don't dwell in the gutters and sewers of empire like the kings and queens in the plays.
A man is never as innocently occupied as when he is making money. Peace will make us rich beyond our wildest dreams. A century from now, our economy will have raced past the economies of all empires. That will be truly exceptional. Congress shall be the strongest legislature in history. President shall take a back seat to congressional government, which shall be the envy of all who cherish liberty. That will be truly exceptional.
All right, Madison. But after that, you lose and I win. America will replace Britain as a world power. Our political parties will ignore the Constitution and go for my elected monarchy. Congress will fight and rubber stamp unlimited presidential wars. And I will be celebrated with a musical on Broadway. While all of you will be forgotten.
Your chosen people mentality blinds you to the death, the destruction, cruelty, and rape, which are the hallmarks of war. If you have your way, our grand republic, our glorious republic, our sacred republic will crumble like the Roman Colosseum. And you, sir, shall bear responsibility for having destroyed the last, best hope on earth. You, sir, are to the Constitution of the United States of America what Benedict Arnold was to the American Revolution. A traitor! Ah! And now, ladies and gentlemen, it remains to us, we, the people of the United States, to set a standard to which the wise and honest may repair, to nobly save rather than meanly lose our republic. It remains to us to surpass the courage of Valley Forge, Cemetery Ridge, and Omaha Beach. So when historians 1,000 years from now write the history of the United States, so it will still be said, this was its finest and most providential hour.
This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. This land is yours.
those of you who want to stay, we'll take, have a general discussion, questions. Ask Mr. Madison to stay here. If I can't answer any questions, he can.
Actually, this is for you. I wondered, did Washington actually write plays while he was, I know he liked plays.
Yeah, you like theater, and at Valley Forge, as we said in the play, he commissioned the soldiers to do Cato. And so I used that as a literary license to have the three many plays so that we could learn, the founders could learn what I didn't want to be like England. Here.
Richard Squires, who I noticed on your program is...
He's my dramatic poobah.
Yes. He just had a performance the other night.
That's right.
Which was, and we discussed afterwards the next steps that he might take with regards to the reading that he had. In other words, that it might then become a full-fledged action, a play, rather than just a reading. And that maybe, who knows, someday a movie might be made of something like that. Have you got such ideas?
Well, what I tried to do is in 1 hour tell what it means to be an American. And we were exceptional in the sense that it was constitutional exceptional. And what made us different from anyone in history is that we had separation of powers. So when you put your hand on the Bible and swear to uphold the Constitution, you're essentially swearing to uphold separation. And the most important separation of powers is war. So war is the most important decision can be made. The founders understood it was the most risky decision that a politician can make. And that's why they did something that had never been done in history before or since, was to take the power which has always existed in the executive and put it in the legislature. And that did us very well. We got, that made us the richest country in the world, and then after we got rich, we decided to tell people what to do.
One of the things that you need to know is in 227 years, Madison was flawless. Congress has never voted to take the country from a state of peace to a state of war in 227 years. In the 5 conflicts when war was acknowledged, Congress simply stated that we were at a situation of war because we had been attacked, apparently, or in some cases, based upon prevarication. But Congress has never voted in 227 years, not one time, to change the state of nature from a state of peace to war. Another thing that I want to underscore, because it's our country. If we don't take it back, they're not going to do it up in Congress. So today, John and I were in Congressman McGovern's office, and he says, well, that there's no demonstrations out there. I don't get any emails about the war issues, the 9 illegal presidential wars. He's preaching to peace conferences up in Massachusetts. They don't do anything like it was during the Vietnam War. So nothing happens. There's no pressure up there to do anything. In contrast, we had Thomas Massey, a congressman from Kentucky. He came and he spoke to us several months ago, maybe it's even longer than that. And he said the reason why Congress did not authorize the war that Obama asked him to initiate against Syria in 2013 is he had 100 phone calls every hour in his office. That's the difference. It's still us. And so we can't blame all the idiocy that's there. As long as we're complacent, we are complicit. Because what's going on, you don't need to do archaeology to discover. It's in the newspapers every single day. You can see it on TV, the bombs, everything. It's known. And we sit here, lethargic, inert, and just say, well, it has to be that way. It doesn't. The only reason it's that way, people aren't doing it.
Do we have a Hamiltonian question?
Yes, could we assume that
This is Carl Kuhn, the father of Howard Kuhn, who was Edward III.
We might assume that converting a bunch of the talented and budding amateurs into this performance can likewise convert a bunch of congressmen into thinking the right things and doing the right things.
Well, we took this performance up. Yeah, we took it up to the Hill in early November, and Yeah, well, we went up there to do CPR on the, we're going down to Mount and basically trying to get a heartbeat in the Republic. And
I'm sure the PBR runs the front of
anyway, go ahead. You got a question there?
Well, I don't know if there's any evidence of it. I doubt there is. The Founding Fathers envisioned ICBMs and hydrogen bombs, and that's a household word, becoming a household word again, nuclear weapons, and I think they did sort of debate, and there were hearings about war powers and atomic weapons. Wasn't that just recently? So I don't know if the Founding Fathers would have ever imagined a world that we had after August 1945, but certainly with the introduction of missiles, and so Hawaii, that right there is a demonstration, right? That if this happens, isn't Congress, isn't that just obsolete at that point?
Would it be okay to ask Madison that question, since he didn't live with those technologies? What do you have to say?
I architect Article 5 in the Constitution provides for amendments, and the very first thing I did in the first Congress was drafted the Bill of Rights. And so they recognized that things would change, that we couldn't have a document that looked like a petrified forest. It needs to be changed, but it had changed through debate, consensus. You need 2/3 in both houses of Congress and 3/4 in the legislature. It happened 28 times. What they clearly did not want to happen is to bring somebody stand up and say, oh, this provision I think is obsolete, so we'll white it out on their own, with no debate, no amendment, nothing. They could white out the War Power Clause, why not? First Amendment. Second Amendment, how about having elections? Oh, it's obsolete to have elections today because we are fighting all these communist, totalitarian countries. We can't afford the possibility that Russia comes in and tries to influence our elections, although we do theirs and everybody else. So the document that I drafted is a document of process. Process is what separates civilization from barbarism. Process when you have a criminal trial. Process by which we elect our legislators. Process by which we elect the president. And process by which we change the Constitution. And I know of not a single member of Congress who has ever introduced an amendment saying we need to transfer the war power from Congress to the executive because we got hydrogen bombs or we got ICBMs or anything else. Not one. Because in my judgment, if it went to a vote, it would lose. No one trusts one person with the authority to kill everything on the planet. And I certainly would.
Hope that answers your question.
Well, the counter-argument is there is no process when it comes to atomic weapons and covert operations because they're secret. And thus, the discussion is out of the public realm, and secrecy as a factor is something that definitely is more prevalent today than it was as the Constitution was written.
And number one, I disagree with that. One of the very first issues with regard to secrecy was disclosing what was gone on with the Jay Treaty with Great Britain in 1795. These issues of executive privilege have been there forever. And moreover, Congress was given authority by me to hold executive sessions to withhold things when it was thought the public interest requires it. And it's written right in the Constitution. It's been there and it continues to this very day. They have executive sessions. They actually pass bills that can be classified, like the budgets of our intelligence agencies, as John Kiriakou could tell you. So it's simply not true that the system doesn't accommodate the need for secrecy. So these are just bogus arguments made up because our system now is run what I call the multi-trillion-dollar military-industrial counterterrorism complex, which takes a threat, multiplies it by 5 million, tells us, gives us $10 trillion to do it, and it may take 100 years to solve, but you know, we're always making progress. There's always some light at the end of the tunnel that nobody can ever get to the end to, but that's why we have to spend now, $20 trillion national debt, $10 trillion since 9/11. For what? We're endangered now than then.
So it's Rip Van Winkle Langer here to come back and see what we made of things. There's a quote right here. You. Yeah.
I don't know if this is wonderful to watch, and satire is another way of dealing with difficult issues. And I don't know whether those of you here know that one of the greatest truth tellers we lost a couple of days ago, Bob Perry, who put out Consortium News, and he broke the Iran-Contra story, and so many other stories. The October Surprise. He wrote a book about what the founders of the Constitution intended, and he took on a lot of the myths about the Second Amendment. But the sad thing is, and he just was tireless. He wrote, 14 hours a day. This investigative reporting site. Some of us were lucky enough to work with him, and he died Saturday, far too young. He was 68. And it was a great loss. And right now, I don't know what will happen with Consortium News. It's an investigative reporting site online that most of you, I'm sure, know. And hopefully whoever, the people that have worked with him will figure out a way to keep it going. But all the themes that John wrote about are the things that he worked on every day and tried to expose hypocrisy, not only in the executive branch and in Congress, but also the way the mainstream press ignores a lot of the important issues. So it's a very sad thing, but at least we have very positive things to watch.
Mr. Perry's final writing was just before the end of the year after he suffered his stroke. He worked mightily, and it's a great read if you get a chance to look at it. And it brings to light many of the points that you just articulated and some of the things that were discussed here tonight. And by the way, Mr. Madison, you didn't include the Bill of Rights in the Constitution. You were pretty much forced to do that by state constitutional conventions in order to get the Constitution passed. Mr. Mason, I believe, if he's here somewhere, Mr. Mason, should take full credit of that. Not you, sir. Not you.
Give me an opportunity to respond. Number one, the amendments were passed not by state legislatures. They do have authority to initiate constitutional convention, and it wasn't done. But the reasoning that Mr. Madison used was that because the federal government was one of limited powers, you didn't need to prohibit something that wasn't surrendered in the first instance. It was thought if the Constitution did not confer the power, it was withheld. And I think he actually made a very prescient argument. He ultimately changed his mind under political pressure and drafted the Bill of Rights. But the fact is we now do impute to the government limitless power unless it's prohibited. That's Nancy Pelosi about the Affordable Care Act. The Constitution? Who's asking about that? Do we have ways to change the Constitution? But that is still a gross misconception that persists today. People automatically assume the federal government can do anything. So, unless the Bill of Rights says no, it can do it. That's not the way in which the Constitution was drafted.
We have
This one. Mark Holland, who's a classmate of mine at Harvard, who's my Harvard class, and he drove all the way down for New York to see the play, so I want to recognize him.
And I'm delighted that I did so. This is a very important topic, and the entire nation should see this play, in my opinion. It's a very current issue. The play was done with witticism and droll and irony. And Congress, being an uncourageous body, knows that this play was to be presented at the Capitol and ducked the issue in a cowardly manner. I'd like to ask if there's a single congressman in the audience. Did anyone from Congress have the courage to show up and at least do soul searching by watching this? Zero. It speaks for itself.
Thank you, Mark. We got a question here, everybody.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Tad Daly's my name. Thank you. You know, first I just want to commend your cast, John Henry, for really putting passion and conviction into your words. It really was very entertaining as well as enlightening. And I really want to applaud you, John, for drawing attention to this thing. Was it Congressman McGovern you said, I don't get any letters on this, but you're right. Completely abdicated, Congress completely abdicated this since 1942. But as I'm sitting here watching, you know, a lot of American history I don't know, but I thought of a couple of examples prior to 1942 that I just want to ask you both about because they seem to me a little bit contrary to this macro thesis that legislatures will inevitably put the brakes on war. And the examples are the 19th century, and they are exactly a half century apart. It's the Mexican War in 1848 and the Spanish-American War in 1898. I guess you can make a somewhat mendacious argument that we were attacked, but I think the big story of both those wars is that we took possession of vast chunks of Mexican territory in 1848, vast chunks of Spanish territory in 1898. I think Congress was pretty enthusiastic about both of those, and in fact, one young congressman voted against it, sort of made the case that I made, and he lost a seat in 1850. His name was Abraham Lincoln. So I love the thesis, but I want to ask you about whether those are examples that diminish the thesis a bit.
We have five, Mr. Madison mentioned 5 wars. They were where we had a declaration war, right? And so in the War of 1812, there was a vote, and we went forward. There was no lie. There was no pretext or anything in that. As you're referring to in the Mexican War, when Lincoln said, show me the spot, it was a spot revolution, show me the spot where we were attacked. Because it was in Mexico where we were attacked, not in Texas. All right. So then in the Spanish-American War in 1798, 1898, the main, it was an explosion, and that was used as a pretext that the Spanish had initiated. And then we have my next play this spring will be on World War I, because we're up on the 100 year. So I'm going to get into the whole question of how we got into World War I and the acts of co-belligerency, where we essentially had a presidential war for 2.5 years before we had a declaration. And so we'll get into some of the we said we were neutral when we weren't. Then you have World War II, and that was we were definitely attacked, but we cut all the oil off to Japan, cut all the strategic minerals. FDR told the Texas Railroad Commission to cut all the oil off for Japan.
I want to
So there are all
just add
these, so those are the 5. Do you want to go into those 4?
Yes, one, for example, in the Mexican-American War, there was disputed territory because the border between Texaco and Mexico had not been definitively resolved at the time Texas became a state of the Union. And Pope lied about the Mexican shooting an American soldier on U.S. soil. In fact, when the lie was disclosed, because he refused to move forward with the so-called spot resolutions, the House of Representatives voted that the war was illegal, unconstitutional, headed by John Quincy Adams, former president, and Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
And later, Pope conceded that he lied about it. So that was based upon a false pretense. Somehow, obviously, they used military means to kill our soldiers. That's aggression. The Spanish-American War, again, even though there was no incentive for Spain, by Spain blowing up the Maine, the president's war message cited the blowing up or the explosion on the Maine as a cause of spell for going to war against Spain. Aside from the fact that once the war message speaks of going to war to liberate Cuba, right? Cuba's not really very close to the Philippines, Guam, Puerto Rico. How do we end up there? They were suppressing self-determination. We're trying to, at the same time, we're trying to give self-determination to Cubans. We're going into the Philippines and telling them, you want to vote for your own country? The heck with that. We'll commit waterboarding and every other thing on the sun. And that was the President of the United States who initiated that. So and now today, the Congress doesn't even vote money for the wars. They just have this outer contingency fund. It's a big slush fund for the Pentagon that they pick up and use anytime they want. So Congress has to say, well, we didn't even vote for the money for that. That's how cowardly they are. I call the Congress of the United States the invertebrate branch of government.
We have a question right back there. Would anyone like to comment on how the United Nations Security Council has superseded the United States Congress in these matters?
Well, they superseded it only in the sense that it's another vehicle for running an unconstitutional war. A treaty, no matter what, cannot override the declare war clause. I mean, that his Supreme Court case called Reed against Covert. And the treaty involves only the Senate, not the House. The declaration of war requires both houses. And it was thought that the House of Representatives was critical because the Senate was thought to perhaps be a more oligarchical institution. Remember, at the outset, it was elected by state legislators. So you summon that's what Harry Truman said. Well, the UN told me I could do that. Well, so what? The UN doesn't pay taxes to the United States. It doesn't owe any loyalty to our Constitution. So all those arguments are bogus.
We got, how many more questions we got, Bowman? Because we got, we got Jeff and you. Who else? Well, we got, okay, you two. All right. Jeff?
We'll keep our answers short.
So I've got a personal question for James and Alexander. What happened between you guys? Because a year before the convention, you seemed to be sort of teaming up to say the Articles of Confederation are no good, and you got together in Annapolis and worked on a draft for doing something better. Where did the fault lines come in, and was it always there, or was this some sort of falling out?
You must have slept through the three plays. Remember, the play says institutional personalities trump the personality of the occupant. James Madison is in Congress, right? That's where he goes, writes the Bill of Rights. Alexander Hamilton's in the executive branch, so his Connecticut wants to fight everything. And he renounced virtually everything he wrote in the Federalist Papers as soon as he got into the executive branch under Washington.
Walter, did you have a question, Walter? No? Okay, where was it? Right there.
I wanted to ask President Madison a question because you were president during probably one of the biggest war debacles in American history. It led to the burning of Washington, D.C. in 1814. You invaded Canada and burned down their capital. What was that all about?
Canada actually, at the time, was part of Great Britain. So when we were at war with Great Britain, Canada obviously is the subject of attack. Because it was it's not invaded. It's like we invaded London or something, or the Gulf Channel with John Paul Jones. And it was and Madison asked that Congress declare war because there had been 20,000 of our seamen that had been kidnapped by the British to serve in their navy because they treated if you've ever read Billy Budd, they understood why everybody abandoned the British ships because they were treated like trash.
We got Alan Brownfeld here, former salon speaker. Alan?
Well, my only question is, Congress has not declared war for some time, but as in the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, Congress has given the executive the power to go to war. If it had been asked for a declaration, it would have done that.
How do you know that?
Well, I was working in the Congress in those years, and I have a feeling that would have happened.
If they have to vote for it. Why? Ask yourself, why would a president refrain from asking for a declaration of war if he could get it? How would that make any political sense?
Well, there were a lot of legal questions, like against whom would we be declaring war? You declare war against states.
Yeah, in North Vietnam.
with the
It would have, it would have been.
My point is that Congress has acquiesced in the executive going to war without a declaration. Right.
That's true enough, but
But that doesn't make it constitutional.
that doesn't really answer anything with regard to the Constitution. Remember, the separation of powers is there to protect the American people, not the vanity of Congress. And the U.S. Supreme Court has held repeatedly, one branch can't give power over to another one. The line item veto, the Supreme Court said, I don't care, Congress wanted to give a line item veto to the president. You can't do that.
Now, we could, this is
The executive will could not take the country to war against the will of Congress. And that's the dilemma I see. I see how we get back to the way.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The executive can't go to war unless Congress authorizes it by a declaration. And if it does nothing, the executive is still acting unconstitutionally. It doesn't take an act of Congress to conclude the president's violating the Constitution. Because the judiciary and we interpret the Constitution, not the Congress.
Yeah, but the
president, they're too cowardly to say what we can all see.
we got, all right, two more over here, and we gotta quit. All right, go ahead.
My name is Martha Lewis. My comment is totally